All right, let's go to the jobs report. 261,000 new jobs created. I'm going to say that's kind of modest. I was hoping for more. Joining us now is Paul Conway, former Labour Department Chief of Staff. Paul, I think it could have been better. I'm a little disappointed. How about you?
Well, I tell you what, I think your description of it as being kind of a solid, moderate report is accurate. I think when you're taking a look at these numbers, you got to take a look at the trend. So I think it's satisfactory, but there's much more you can do, especially if you take a look at the labor force participation rate. That dipped down. What you want to do is you want to keep bringing more people into the labor force. That's why these other issues like tax policy and the budget matter. But I think it's a solid report. Stuart, I wasn't overwhelmed by it. I was very pleased with some of the upticks in white-collar jobs in the professional services, manufacturing, oil and gas, and some of those things which are consistent with where the president said his policy would go. And I think you're seeing companies hiring in that area. But I think there's much more that can be done, and we got to get the growth rate up, no doubt about it.
Okay, now I want to read you part of the statement from the DNC chair, that is Tom Perez. Here's what he said. Without passing any significant economic legislation, Donald Trump is once again taking credit for the strength of the economy he inherited from President Obama. Go at that one, please.
Well, I tell you what, Tom Perez is an interesting character. Not only is he the current head of the Democratic National Committee, but he's the former Secretary of Labor. So he knows darn well that President Obama had an agenda of regulation and strangulation on an economy that was trying to get off the mat and fight. What a bunch of gall that this gentleman has to actually attack progress in America when people are trying to create jobs, and then take it back to growth under his administration.
But look, we do have 3% growth in the economy right now. How much of that growth do you ascribe to President Trump and his proposals, or to the hangover from President Obama?
Well, here's what I ascribe it to, actually. I ascribe it to the power of the entrepreneur and the corporate executive to take confidence in a new agenda that's coming, actually without legislation passed, that the anticipation that you can use capital and create jobs now and not be under the threat of the federal government or President Obama, that's improved. And so your optimism is running high. What we need to do is we need to get the policies passed that create even more growth.
Okay,
so I actually would give the president a lot of credit for 3%.
If you get this tax plan as is, or virtually as is, and you pass it this year, how many jobs are we going to be creating next year per month, and what kind of growth rate do we get to next year?
Well, I think on the margins you'll have arguments about different things, but if you take a look at the solid job driver in this report, and then also look at the tax plan, where you're really trying to empower is small business, and you're trying to repatriate corporate money to come home. I actually think that you can bring the job creation numbers up to over 100,000. You ought to be averaging around 325, 350,000 jobs per month. And then in the years that come after that, you should be able to take it up more. Because remember, Stuart, you have a huge number of people in the labor force right now that are not fully employed. And those people need to have solid jobs. The only way you're going to get that, actually, is by stimulating private sector, especially small business, but also letting corporations that have high investment, high cost over time, like pharmaceutical companies, bring their money back on repatriation and put that to work. All right,
Paul Conway, Gary Cohn just told us that hundreds of billions will be coming back with this tax plan. All right, Paul Conway.
So 312 billion, Stuart.
That's a lot of money. All right.